shifts, like the alignments of the planets and a lot of astrological signs just lining up. This has been happening, from what I know, at least since October of 2025. And like in October, there was about 6 or 7 planets that were lined up in a certain zodiac. And this weekend, there was 6 planets lined up. I'm not sure if it was in a zodiac, but just literally all laid out in the sky. You could literally see the 6 planets that they were talking about. I saw a lot of dots because I live out here in a little bit of a deserted area, so I'm able to see a lot of the sky and a lot of the planets and these constellations. So I didn't really know what I was looking at, but I know I went out there with the intent of looking for these like 6 planets that were lined up that everybody was talking about. So if you didn't already hear about that, that went down this weekend, and there's just gonna continue to be more alignments, more planets sitting in the same constellation, like for instance, the constellation of Pisces or something. So, right, like all these planets being in a Piscean energy where it's full of water and emotion and transformation. And that's just a pure sign of the times, right? So, some people might take it in a negative connotation, like sign of the times, like end times. Is the world ending? Is civilization ending as we know it? Because there is just more war and more attacks in Iran and the Middle East and things like that. And also, I mean, February was crazy. Like, now that I'm just reflecting back on this month alone, I know a lot of people got sick this month. There was a lot of stuff going on in Mexico. I had just promised my dad that I was going to go visit him out there. And then all this crazy stuff happened like the very next day. But I had just announced it on my birthday. It was on Monday. Shout out to me. I just turned 33. So, that like spiritual awakening, the year of a spiritual awakening, because if you don't know about the vertebrae, the 33 bones on your spine, those symbolize enlightenment, because at the very top is the 33rd, and that's where people believe your pineal gland is, the crown chakra, the energy field of like the beyond, like how we connect to the other side, beyond the veil, right? Like heaven and all these different energies. So it's not to say everyone when they hit 33 is going to get a spiritual awakening, but that number is just very symbolic in spirituality and esoteric knowledge. And for me, it's been a beautiful year. I've never had this much peace in my life, that it's almost like, it's not scary, but I'm just not used to it, like my Saturn return is over and I feel the relief. I feel the karma cleared up in my life, because I was working hard at this since even before my Saturn return came about, which is like at the age of 26, 27, you start kind of, revisiting certain lessons. If you didn't already learn them early in your years, you will go through some trials and tribulations. You will reap what you've sown all those 28 years. And it was chaotic for me. A lot of people break up during that time. They have emotional roller coasters, and it was like that for me. But because I was doing the work, and by doing the work, I mean just working on yourself, your discipline, being mindful of what you say to others and how you make them feel, your judgments, putting in work that can be really, really hard, but like I mentioned in another video, and a great friend said that the pain of the discipline, it has to be like, you would rather go through the pain of discipline than the pain of not being disciplined, because when you're not disciplined and you don't get your for lack of a better term, your SHIT together, if you don't get that stuff together, emotional roller coasters, your emotional outburst, things that you find wrong with the world, if you don't clear that stuff up, that energy up, then it just gets harder for you when you get older. Because if you've ever had to deal with elders, or just elderly people who never really figured it out, right? They're still very emotional, very abusive, very violent, very angry, very bitter. Those are people who didn't work on their lessons. They didn't work on their discipline, and they didn't seem to get the things out of life that they had hoped for, that they had wanted, because what you want out of life, you have to constantly ask yourself so that you can gear and direct yourself in that direction and execute. Because if you keep wasting time and procrastinating, then you don't get the fruits of your labor. And if you're just working a 9 to 5 job, it can be satisfying when you get your money and you buy the things that you want and you have the things that you want material wise. But then emotionally, did you did you give up on yourself? Like, were there things that you wanted for yourself and then you didn't go after them because you allowed the energy of work to just take you on, take your totality, take energy out of you, that you couldn't get the things done that were supposed to be for you, the things that you desire, the things that you feel like you need, safety wise, survival wise. You need to do those things without stepping on others, without abusing others, without making others feel bad, because then that's when you do those bad deeds, then you're racking up more karma. You're not clearing anything up. You're not helping yourself out, because that will always reciprocate back later. It'll always come back around, that energy. Like if you abuse someone or exploit someone, that's going to come back around later. So even if in that moment you may have solved an issue or made yourself feel good, that thing is coming back around, when the universe feels that it's time, and you can't control that. So that's just what I mean. And, that was just about me turning 33, spiritual awakening, doing the work. This is stuff that I always talk about, but now let's talk about the alignments and what it means, like why, sorry if the sound changed a little bit. Why are all these planets aligning up? Why is there a lot of synchronization? Why do I say certain words at the same time as other people? Or why do I say certain words at the same time as the TV? Or what if I'm thinking something and that word pops up on the TV right then simultaneously, what if you message someone and they just texted you back, or they said, I was about to text you? Like, those little alignments and synchronizations are happening a lot more. Pay attention to them. They are good signs. They are signs that you are on track. Because these signs and these subtle energies that you can perceive and you can feel will get you through whatever trials and tribulations are revolving around you, because it's never going to stop. You can better yourself. You can get to a wholesome place, to a holy place, to somewhere where you can self-sustain yourself emotionally, But there's always going to be more things to learn, I'm 33. I feel like I've learned so much. I feel like I'm an elder. I feel like I can teach so much wisdom that I've gone through. And yet there's still more to come for me. Like, I know that, life ain't going to be easy just because I worked so hard the first 30 years of it. Like, the next 30 years isn't going to be a breeze. It's just going to be adapting and directing myself to what the new level of realization, or the level of awareness that I reach, So it's happening, like I was saying about the violence too in Mexico, and then there's stuff going on in Iran. February was a crazy month because there was just a lot of war that broke out, and if you keep watching the news, you're going to keep seeing things come up. It's not anything different than what it was in July of 2024. Like, there's going to always be someone's always going to get kidnapped, or a lot of times we see these kidnaps or Amber Alerts on TV, and it's just like the other parent that didn't have custody that ended up taking their kids, and they're making a big deal about it. If you don't already know, some of these networks are done underground with the help of some kind of not police force, but authority like that, and so they never really alert, or they never really trigger these Amber Alerts that their network themselves are running, but that's just like a side note. So when you do see something on TV related to that, it's usually someone who was not in the network, and they need to make sure that this person doesn't get away with it. But yes, so a lot of craziness around the world, a lot of war breaking out, territorial stuff, political stuff, and that's not going to change. Just like I said, it's always been kind of like that. We've been warring in the Middle East for a long time, since 2001, right? I mean, there's even stuff about being in the Middle East, Americans working, having things set up in the Middle East even before 2001, you know? And you can go to this girl named BJ Investigates who talks a lot about the cloning that began in the early 2000s. And a lot of that stuff actually originated in the Middle East. You know, like a lot of these scientists that were working on cloning were working out of the Middle East because America didn't pass those laws, and there were no laws to really keep them from doing it over there. So that's what was going down. And you know, I'm not even gonna get into like that political stuff, but like I said, there is always political things going on in the background, underground, that we don't know about. So if they just seem to surface this year, in the next few months, the next few weeks, it's just because of the time of exposure is now. Like the time of exposure is right now. The fire horse energy is really ramping up the need to expose things. Like, because people are fed up, fire horse energy is like Trojan horse, strong willed, very, not aggressive, but just like the endurance, right? Like fire. A horse has a lot of energy, fire has a lot of stamina, and people are fed up. You know, they're like up to here with the lies, up to here with the deceit, and people just want the truth to come out. So there's a lot of whistleblowers out there putting stuff out there. And it may or may not be for you to ingest, because you may not be in the best place in your life to ingest that kind of information. And just trigger warning, because in 2020, a lot of people went through that. A lot of people went through stuff where they couldn't handle the truth of it, and it made them go off course, and they didn't reach, you know, where they were supposed to go. They went another direction. And that's okay, because I did the same thing, but you always got to come back up. You know, when you have your downs and you have your times when you need to like repel from everybody and stay away, and then, you know, work on yourself, work on everything maybe around you, your immediate family. It's okay, but you got to come back out of that shell eventually, okay? Don't stay down there. Don't pity yourself. Don't tell yourself, oh, I had everything and I lost it all. It happens a lot, you know. And my great mentor, Pretty Boss TV, she basically, you know, she let us all know in a class that we took this weekend that it happens to the best of us, you know, like we lose everything and we just got to come back around and reinvent ourselves, right? Like adapt to the change. Because there was so much change in 2020, we all had to adapt. So it's just about like, how did you adapt to it? And this is just, this energy is coming back around again of like, things are being exposed. Okay, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to move now? Because getting angry about it doesn't work for that long. Getting angry burns up your energy. It burns up the spiritual energy. It burns up your motivation. You know, sometimes we can be motivated to do things, and then what? We burn up the energy. We used it, and then what is left for us? So there are people out there saying, you know, we should be mad about these files, you know, we need to be mad. And I understand that. I've come from that place before, but I'm mad, and then now what? You know, what should I do with this anger? Should I transmute it and use it for creating a new world that is better than that? Or am I going to burn up my energy destroying something that's already being destroyed because its time is up? Like naturally, it's already dissipating and dissolving. Why am I going to burn up my energy and throw it in the fire too with it? You know, like let me use it to create the new world, to birth the new world, instead of, you know, letting it all go down into flames, right? Because you think there's gonna be a phoenix thing going on after that. No, I know that with the phoenix symbolization, you know, it turns into ashes and then it rises from the ashes. But usually when you birth something new, it usually can come right before the end of the old, because people already have to start transitioning and changing and adapting. It's really hard to be at ground zero and then start something completely new. You know, a lot of times if you kind of get what I mean, it's better to just like slowly build up to it, you know, before completely ending it all. Like, let's just say with my last business, I had a food business. Before completely dissolving it all and then leaving myself with absolutely no income, I started building a new business before I let the other one go. So that way there was no gaps of me not having any income. It's like, okay, I can let that go now because I've set up myself in a new area, in a new in a new world, So I'm getting some income here. So now when I leave that, it's not going to hurt as much. I'm not going to be as far behind. And that's what I mean by like starting a new world, a new reality, a new way of being, instead of putting too much energy to end the old, right? Because then you're left with nothing. And then how do you can build from there, definitely, always, 100%. But I just say that it's smarter for me to just start setting up my pebbles somewhere else before I completely move out. You know what I mean? Like sometimes too, like you move out of an apartment, you move into the new one, and if you can get your new place before the old one is like completely up and you got to give the keys, it's best that way because you can slowly start moving your stuff into the new location before you completely let go of the old one. Because then let's just say you can't even move into the new one. What are you going to do with all your stuff? All that baggage, all that load, what are you going to do with it whilst you get the new place, So it's just like, how do you want to transition? What's the easiest way to transition? Because the old world, the old paradigm is ending. But sadly, like there will always be puppets and clowns that will try to keep perpetuate some level of that still. And there will always still be people following that new narrative, following that new, you know, matrix, or the new wannabe matrix, or whatever it is, because they're talking about how, Trump is ending all the political stuff, right? He's ending all the old and getting rid of them all. But like, is he really? Or is he just a part of it all and just trying to, you know, make it look like he's got a whole new thing going on when it's a little bit of the old still there, it's still tainted. So a lot of people are still going to follow that. Excuse me. They're still going to follow the politics, and that's fine. But like, don't burn up energy judging and trying to destroy something. It's better to just collect your pennies and go elsewhere. So that's really what I wanted to say in this video about the shifts, about the transitions, about the lineups, the alignments, the synchronization. It's all happening anyways. It's just like, what character are you playing in it all, right? And yeah, that's really it, family. All right, YouTube. I hope you liked the video. I really wanted to make this super quick because after we took this class this weekend, we realized some of us got to just get to work. We got to start building this new life, this new foundation, this new world right now, because it's a better time than ever. And I can't keep procrastinating and saying, I'll do it tomorrow. Like, hey, this subject is hot on my head. Let me get it done. And then, oh, maybe it's not that important. Now more than ever, if you feel that something's important, write it down, set a schedule, put it on your calendar, because if you let it go, it's just going to be more great energy that you're kind of like shoving under the rug, trying to save it for another day when right now it needs to shine. But yeah, that's it. So hopefully you guys liked my little spiel, my explanation of what these alignments, what these things are really meaning. Should we lose hope? What is this energy going to bring? What is this year going to bring? We don't exactly know because it's transpiring, and a lot of us we couldn't have predicted some of this, but just know that you need to have the faith that people talk about. Like, I know some of you may not be Christian, some of you may not be Catholic, but like that faith that people have in their God, in their Bibles and everything like that, even though the Bibles are great. Like, there's so many different types of Bibles, right? Like the Talmud, and I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. The Quran, all of these books are sacred. They're symbolic. They are used as tools. But just because we're not all in the same religious practice doesn't mean we can't understand each other, right? So like the faith that you have in life, in God, in yourself, it needs to reflect everywhere in your life, especially when the world seems like it's crumbling, right? You need to keep that faith more than ever, and you need to hold it down. You need to hold it up for the Most High, for, this creator that we all know so much is there and believe in. So we got to hold it up for it, hold it up for all of us, for the children, for the future. If you have a family, then we don't want this to end. We want them, if anything, to make it better for us. Like they're already, like Gen Z and even Generation Alpha, they're already shifting and changing things. Their emotional behaviors are so different. Their perception is so much deeper. And so they're already changing things for us. We just need to be here to hold it up for them, to be stable for them,
And you'll see, you'll see later on. It'll eventually get better, especially for you if you're doing the work. Okay? Because if you're not doing the work, if you're not doing any prayers, if you're not, you know, protecting your energy, then yes, it can get wild and people can come right underneath you and snatch whatever they got or whatever they get their hands on, right? But we won't let that do. We won't let that happen. And yeah. So peace out, YouTube. And hopefully I see you soon. Come back with some more messages. And hopefully we can just start building again, because I know in the past I've done a lot of conspiratorial stuff, but we have to start building something better, right? So peace out, guys.